Okay, so we have Esther representing KANICE. She will be speaking about decolonizing the British education system and normalizing school success for Black students. That's her general theme. Obviously, she may be touching on other things. Esther, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Albert. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I hope you're all well in the midst of this crazy time that we're currently living in. So first of all, my name's Esther. As Albert said, I am a second year PhD researcher. I'm currently studying social policy. And my specific area of interest is Black and minority ethnic young people, specifically Black African students, and how their mental health is shaped by systems in the UK. So how policy impacts how they live, how they work, how they study, how they engage with their families, and just how well they feel, just generally. I say this because as a Black PhD researcher, there aren't many of us, both in my institution, which is the University of Brighton, and also nationally. I think it's about maybe 10 or 15% of PhD funding goes to Black students or Black African, Black Caribbean heritage people. So it is a very important thing for people to see Black people specifically in different areas, if that makes sense, different professions, different fields. I also work as a gifted and talented educator. So I work for a charity called the Brilliant Club, specifically teaching a decolonized curriculum that I developed myself. It looks at migration to the UK from Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, and how the mental health and well-being of people from migrant backgrounds is impacted again by systems that the British government has put in place. And I teach in London. I'm mainly based around Hackney area, but again, wider, so Dagenham, Enfield, all the way down to South London. And one thing my students often say to me is, wow, like you're doing a PhD and you're Black, and it's quite shocking for them, which is refreshing, but also quite worrying at the same time, because you would hope that in 2020, there would be enough Black people in different arenas where seeing a Black person doing a PhD wouldn't be like, very shocking. But it is, and I think that in itself is something that we need to change. So education for me is very important. I'm going to be going into my, I think, 9th year of university this September, God willing. And it's been a really rough journey. I think everyone can accept that, in hindsight, looking at certain things, you understand, what your parents were telling you, what your family may have been saying, certain feelings you may have had in secondary school that maybe you couldn't explain properly. So reflecting on those things is a very important part of what I do. And I set up my charity called KANICE last year with a group of other Black professionals. And our aim is to basically focus on everything non-academic. So we go into schools and we say to the teachers, you do the grades, we will do everything else. And everything else also includes meeting with parents and encouraging them to take a keen interest in their children's education. So that's kind of what I'm going to be speaking on today. So firstly, as you can see, I'm very visibly Black, and I'm very proud of the fact that I'm Black. I'm Nigerian. Both my parents are of Nigerian heritage, and I feel as though it's a very important part of who I am. So in talking about Black education system, it's something that's very close to my heart, not just professionally, but also personally as well. So when I speak, I talk about kind of statistics and things like that, because again, data is one of the things that we kind of live and thrive by in this country. And one of my keen areas of interest is the fact that at GCSE level, we see that Black students on the whole tend to achieve English and maths pass rate at about 44–45%. For white British students, it's about 42–43%. So on the whole, Black students at the GCSE standard in terms of pass rates are above at the age of 16. Yes, it's different when we disaggregate into Black Caribbean and Black African. So for Black African students, they're a little bit higher. Black Caribbean students, I think the pass rate's about in the 30s somewhere, the late 30s. So it is a little bit below the kind of ethnic average. But what we do see that is absolutely astounding is by the time we reach A-levels, so bear in mind that the difference between GCSEs and A-levels is about 2 years on average for most people. The amount of Black students that achieve, 3A grade pass rate at A-levels is about 5%. maybe 6 at most. It's about 5.6%. And that is actually the lowest of all aggregated ethnic groups. So that is lower than Asian, it's lower than mixed, it's lower than white. And that in itself shows that there's a problem with the system, because for somebody to be achieving very high grades at the age of 16, and within the space of 24 months, which is not that long, if we're being honest with ourselves, to then decline to the point where they are below every other ethnic group, there's clearly an issue there. It could be to do with the syllabus. This is what we're told. It could be to do with lack of confidence. It could be to do with external factors, for example, the community, or transitions that happen between the ages of 16 to 18. And yes, all of those things do play a factor. But if we're being very honest with ourselves, I think for a lot of us, we started to kind of become a bit, for want of a better word, woke to the system around that age, 16, 17, 18. You start to realize that things aren't as they seem, you have a bit more freedom, but at the same time, it's a bit too much freedom for some people. And the system, even in the way it teaches A levels, the way it teaches BTEC qualifications, it's not necessarily designed to promote Black families, Black communities, and Black students. And the problem with that is the minute you are not you're not seeing yourself reflected in what you're learning, you're going to switch off. You're disengaged completely. You may be able to memorize a few things between year 7 and 11, and that's fine. You can sit your exams. But when you reach the real world, you realize that actually this isn't going to serve me. It's not going to serve me well. So the reason why I speak very passionately about, decolonizing the education system, and I'm not just talking about the curriculum specifically, I mean, talking about as a community, what can Black people, not just parents, it could be educators, it could be families, if you are a godparent, if you have cousins, if you have younger siblings, all of us are in this together. Whether or not, we agree is not the issue. We need to make sure that the future generations that come after us, and even ourselves as a current generation, that we're supporting each other and we're uplifting each other. Because if we've all identified the same problem, and that is, the system doesn't necessarily work to our advantage, we all need to work together to come up with a solution, especially if people who are in positions of power don't necessarily support us in the way that we want them to. So a key thing that I always say to a lot of the parents that I work with is, if your child ever says to you that, the teacher's treating them unfairly, or they're not able to engage with the curriculum, or they speak on maybe bullying or anything that just seems a bit strange, please give them the light of day. Like, make sure that you listen to them. If that was to be in a workplace, we all know that that could potentially end up at a tribunal. So why is it different when a child says it? I think it's very important for us to start normalizing open conversations about our children's education, about their development, about their mental health, not just in terms of education in the school, but education begins at home. And I think it's really important, because between the ages of 0 and 5, which is when most children in the UK start school, that's a long time to be at home. It's a long time to be with family, to be with friends, to be with parents, to be with other children, for example. 5 years is a very long time, a very, very long time. That's half a decade. And in that time, you can teach your child very basic holistic skills, scaffold their development, encourage them to be resilient. And I know it sounds, very simple. How do we encourage children to be resilient? How do we encourage them to want to learn and to value their education? How do we teach them to value hard work and consistency? These things aren't just important for the education system, they're important for life. So what you can do, yes, you may not be a teacher, you can teach your children, teach your siblings, teach your cousins, how to value being consistent, and also teach them strategies, because we don't often see ourselves reflected in our curriculum. And I think that in itself is often to our detriment. And as much as we are trying to make changes, people like myself, my colleagues, and other people in the community are trying to make changes in the system, unfortunately, we're not moving at a rate that is as quick as we would like to. So in the meantime, what we can do, in the same way that, people engage in forms of protest, I think it's important to remember that protest isn't, it's not an event, it's a lifestyle. You have to live a life of protest. If you're not happy with the way that the system is treating your children, is treating you, if you are a student, for the students that are watching, you need to make sure that you understand how to go about maybe escalating, finding support outside of the education system. That is one thing that has really, really, really saved me, because being at a university, I'm often, the only Black person in a room. And it's strange because I find myself in rooms with people that are in their 30s and 40s and they don't know how to act around Black people. And it's shocking. It is actually shocking. But the only reason why I'm able to kind of surpass that is because of my family, because of my friends. When I'm at university, I don't always see people that look like me. But when I'm home, I do. When I'm walking through Tottenham or Edmonton, I see people that look like me. And remembering where I'm from, remembering where I'm rooted is really important. It's really, really important. Because that is what keeps me grounded. And it also keeps me going because people being, happy to see me doing a PhD, very encouraging and supportive of me is really important to me. And that for me is what keeps me going. Because really and truly in the institution, in academia, you don't often get the encouragement and support that your family and friends will give you. You will never find it anywhere else. So that is really, really important. Another thing I wanted to talk about is parents. So where you can go if you're not happy with, if your child, comes home with a complaint about how they're being treated at school, what they're being taught. Parents, please, it's really important for you to engage in what your child is being taught at school. I know especially in secondary school, it's quite hard because children be like, oh, I don't want to show you my planner or whatever it is, but look on the school website, go to parents' evenings, speak to your child's tutor, speak to parents of your child's friends, engage with all the people that you can so that you can get a good picture of what's happening to your child. Your child's going to spend a lot of time at school. They are there most of the day, most of the week, for most of their lives until they reach about 16 or 18. So it is critical that you understand and you are aware of exactly what's going on, because the last thing you want is for something to happen and then for you to think, I wasn't aware of that. So it's really important that we engage with our students' education, that we support them, that we help them to develop, speak to their tutor, if they have a pastoral care lead or a mentor or a head of year. These are all people that can support you. If that doesn't work, please make sure you know how to contact your school's board of governors. That is a critical thing for all parents. Make sure you know who is on the board of governors at your child's school and how to get in contact with them if you're not happy with something that's happened. And then in escalating it further, also make sure that you have contact details for your MP. If you head over to the Parliament, www.parliament.uk website, if you type in find your MP, you just need to put in your postcode and it will tell you who your MP is if you're not sure. And also it will give you their contact details. And there are lots of templates online and on social media that kind of explain how to write a letter to your MP. If it's about your child's schooling, it's important enough for you to be able to write a letter to your MP. Another point, is parents looking after themselves. I think it's difficult because with each passing generation, we find ourselves reflecting on current and previous traumas. And sometimes we can end up passing those traumas on. They call it intergenerational transmissions of trauma. It's a psychological concept, but basically it talks about how trauma can be passed on from people within the same family or within the same community, and what that does to people. If you tell your child at the age of 11, be careful of those white people because they're going to be racist, or school's going to be hard, or make sure you fight back. I think as much as it serves to protect, it can also serve to upset and to depress as well. So it's really, really important, parents, that you know how to support yourself and you know how to scaffold your child's development. And to be honest, we're in 2020. If you don't know how to do something, ask. Google is your friend, find someone online. There are loads of charities online that support children's development, that are BAME focused specifically, or if you don't like the term BAME, because it is very problematic, especially if you don't like, having extra letters added onto the B, that's completely fine. There are charities that focus just on Black students. So find them, they're out there, contact them. Don't wait until the last minute, until you're at your wit's end or until your child is at risk of failing and they're in year 11 before you think, oh, actually, the lights have just gone on. So just to kind of summarize, I just wanted to say that I think it's really important to focus on parental mental health, children's mental health, and engaging in your children's teaching, because unfortunately at the moment we do see a lot of bias in the way that the curriculum has been taught. And even in trying to lobby to get the curriculum changed, honestly, I do it as a 9 to 5. It is exhausting. It is exhausting having to explain to people what blackness is and why it's important. It's exhausting having to explain to people why I need to see, you know, a different side of slavery written in my textbooks. It's exhausting to have to constantly explain to people why blackness is important, why it's important, why it needs to be in front of me, why I need to see, you know, black teachers in my school. I shouldn't have to walk into a school and be the only black teacher in the school. I shouldn't have to walk into a classroom and the children are shocked and say, "Miss, oh, you're black." And I'm like, yeah, I am. That shouldn't be something that is new in 2020. So I think it is very important. I think there was a comment earlier about black male educators and people getting involved in teaching. It is very demanding, but it's also very rewarding. So I would say to anybody that's considering teaching, please get involved with contact teaching charities. I know that Albert and his team do an amazing job, but there are also loads of other charities out there that can support you, that are happy to answer your questions. I mean, we're all here for you. If you have any questions, please message me or email me at KANICE UK. It's KANICE UK, all one word. Twitter, Insta, LinkedIn. Happy to answer any questions that anyone may have and to do a bit of a follow-up afterwards. But that's it from me for now. So take care of yourselves, everyone.
Thank you, Esther. Really, really insightful comments and points made, and loads for people to take away. So what's brilliant is that loads of actionable things for people to take away. Especially what stuck with me is parents getting involved and sort of engaging in their child's education. So thank you, and obviously follow at KANICE UK on Twitter and Instagram, and get in touch with Esther if you want to just have a conversation, engage more, or follow up on some of the things